Swagatam has always had special guests who were invited to our studios, but today we have something which is very different. We have come out of the studios, the portals of the studios, and we have come to meet a very special guest, Mr. Rabindra Nath Ojha, who by profession was a teacher of English literature, but by passion he was a poet, a philosopher, a writer, an essayist and a critic. Welcome, Mr. Ojha, for this interview. First of all, I'd like to start with my first question, since you are a poet. Now, T.S. Eliot was of the opinion that poetry is not the turning loose of emotion, but an escape from emotion, whereas Wordsworth said, no, it is a powerful overflow of emotion. What is your school of thought?
My thinking is, so far as my thinking is concerned, I feel that it is the expression of our inner self. Whatever is within us, if some situation outside or some inner happenings, they create some disturbances in the on the mental plane, and where you lose your normalcy, the harmony, then you become disturbed and you want to regain your composure. In that process, poetry is born. Poetry comes to our rescue. It helps us in restoring that composure which was lost for some time due to some external disturbances or inner disturbances.
Right.
This is my thinking, this is my feeling
your
about
opinion.
poetry.
Right, right.
I don't go into what others say.
Right.
Or
yeah, it's your thought.
Yes, my experience it is.
You mean to say that there is in literature a cathartic element? As you said, it purges you, you ease off. But don't you think that the artist has to distance himself ultimately to give creative emotion?
It may be, but so far as my experiences go, I feel that it is natural that I am involved in the whole emotion. And while just giving expression to it, I have to detach myself a little from it. And like a, say, detached person, I view the whole thing. And then I manage to give a full and free expression to what I felt actually, and to what conclusions I draw from it. Because ultimately, all these feelings lead to some kind of reflective conclusion. You go to you reach some conclusions about life itself. So it doesn't end there. You draw some conclusions about life. I mean, you get some philosophical basis for thinking.
Right.
And therefore, whatever I give expression to concludes with certain hints or with some specific suggestions or say some solutions.
Now, Mr. Ojha, you have been writing prose and you have been writing poetry, which is very interesting.
Yes.
And certainly, you know, you are very clear-cut when to write prose and when to write poetry. Could you tell us the difference in approach? I mean, when do you decide this could be put into prose and this should be put into poetry?
Well, what I feel generally, that the feelings that arise within me, the emotions, when it comes to expression, they find their own form. I mean, I don't do anything consciously. For example, if you are, more intellectual, emotions subside, and you are just philosophizing, then naturally you will take the help of prose. But when you are in the full flow, in the very heat of emotion, full flow, and then and there you have to give expression to it, then it takes the form of poetry. And my difficulty is that though I was gifted with poetic sensibility, I could appreciate poetry very well. But in the initial stages, I couldn't write poetry, compose poetry. But in later stages, when I mastered prose, and when I did a lot of creative writing in prose, naturally, you see, this poetic process came to me, and I was wonderstruck how it came and what is happening with me. So you can say one fine morning, I found myself a poet. And I blessed myself and blessed the Creator that he gave me this kind of blessing, that I became a poet. I turned out to be a poet.
I'm glad you said something which is beautiful, because even William Wordsworth suddenly became a poet. Remember his line, I made no vows, but vows were then made for me. Now coming back to literature, in Hindi it is called Sahitya. If I may dare to interpret it, because you are also a Hindi poet, if we interpret Sahitya, it means Sahit. That means there is a relationship between form and content. Do you agree that you have kept this balance between form and content?
Though I agree with you, but Sahitya has different meanings.
Yes, correct. But
first thing, Sahit. Hit is well-being.
Right.
That means literature is one in which the well-being of the whole community is wished for. You understand? And then Sahit means including everything. Literature includes, it is all inclusive. Nothing is excluded. Nothing is untouchable here. So, in our vocabulary, in Hindi if you are talking, then Sahitya means these two things. And Sahitya is the abstract, I mean the bhav of Sahitya. But you are giving a different interpretation,
yes.
That there should be harmony between
form and content.
You are right, and I also feel it. When these two things combine in the best proportion, best possible proportion, then you have the first class creative writing. Either poetry, be it prose or be it poetry. But they must, synchronize, or they must so much coalesce or combine so well to the perfection, to the point of perfection. So here, sometimes we cannot achieve this.
Yes.
And therefore, our standard falls below.
So that was Mr. Rabindra Nath Ojha, a poet by passion, and very interestingly, he not only wrote in English, he wrote in Hindi and he wrote in Bhojpuri. So I take this opportunity to wish you many more years of happy writing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That was our guest this week in Swagatam.